I can't think of a bigger advancement in the history of video games than the jump from 2D to 3D graphics. One of the groundbreaking games that led this revolution was the original Starfox on the Super Nintendo. To illustrate the kind of impact it made, let's start with a quick story. When I was a kid, I would sneak into my older brother's room to boot up his PC and play a new flight sim. Despite wanting to like it, the frame rate was so choppy and the wireframe graphics were so low res, I could barely make out what was happening on screen. I crashed a few times and decided to put the floppy disk away, thinking to myself, man, these 3D flying games really suck. The years flew by, and my friends and I got into 2D side-scrolling and top-down shooters at the arcade. Classics like Galaga and R-Type kept us entertained, but my prior experimentation with 3D games had planted a seed in my imagination about what it would be like to pilot the spaceship through 3 dimensions. I thought maybe someday in the future that experience would be realized, but that the world just wasn't ready for it yet. Fast forward to 1993 when my kid brother unwrapped a new Super Nintendo for his birthday, along with a game called Starfox. At this time, I was still rocking it on my Sega Master System and sometimes hanging out with my friends playing their NES and Genesis. When my bro popped in that cartridge and the intro scene and music came on, my jaw dropped, and I knew that moment I'd been waiting for all those years had finally come. You see, Starfox didn't just take us to new worlds, it changed the game, literally, by introducing 3D polygon graphics into the mix. So grab your R-Wing and buckle up because we're about to dive into how Starfox redefined the shooter genre. Join me as we step into a retro time machine and look back at the immense popularity and lasting influence in this retro gaming boss review of Starfox for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Do you remember your first impression playing this game? How could you ever forget? This game absolutely blew the doors open on what was possible in video games. Instead of just moving your ship across a flat 2D plane, Starfox made space feel, well, like space. With the use of its Super FX chip, you were put into a 3D environment to navigate, where you could move within the confines of the forward-scrolling rails in a way that made the gameplay feel dynamic, fresh, and, dare I say, immersive, in a way that no 2D shooter could match. The world wasn't just a background to move through, it felt like you were actually flying through it. The rings, buildings, spaceships, and bosses had a real dimensionality and depth. The effect was mind-blowing for its time and seemed so futuristic and advanced. It's crazy to think back how when I was still blasting away in 2D shooters, this game came out of nowhere and introduced 3D graphics to the world, ushering in a whole new era of interaction with video games. The legacy of Starfox is due largely to 5 key areas where it made breakthrough improvements over the status quo of the time. The first was its new hardware, with each cartridge packing Nintendo's new Super FX chip, a special geometry coprocessor that allowed for 3D graphics on the Super Nintendo, which was a huge technological leap at the time. This custom-made RISC processor acted like a graphics accelerator, performing calculations required to draw polygons. The game's use of these advanced capabilities was a visual marvel, whether you were battling through the confines of alien worlds or dogfighting in open space. Starfox gave you a sense of scale and excitement that was unmatched at the time. Sure, its polygons aren't as complex or high-res as today's 3D games, but in 1993, trust me, it was as close to the future as you could get and provided a glimpse of what was possible and could come in future games. The next factor was Starfox's innovative gameplay, which introduced players to the on-rails format of space combat, allowing you to pilot your craft through various missions and environments while constantly moving forward into the action. The game's thrills, combined with its tight controls, provided an exciting and immersive experience unlike other games at the time. It also featured different viewpoints, either trailing your R-Wing in third person on the planetary levels, or putting you in the center of the action in its cockpit during the space-based missions. The third factor was its memorable characters and story. Compared to the 2D shooters of the time that didn't offer much of a story at all, Starfox featured a brilliant and charismatic cast of humanized animal characters. You played as Fox McCloud, the leader of the Starfox team, including Falco, Slippy, and Peppy. Your mission was to take down the evil scientist Andross and his forces. I have to be honest that initially, the characters weren't really to my liking, but then strangely, they started to grow on me in that quintessential and cute Nintendo magic kind of way. There's just something about the characters' personalities and their interactions that have such a fun and pure charm. The camaraderie of surviving through the missions together as a team felt really awesome, especially after taking down one of the massive bosses. The fourth aspect that made Starfox a classic was how it provided you the choice of 3 different paths to play through from the start in Corneria to Venom, the final stage. This freedom was a great contrast to the top-down 2D shooters that took you through the same route every time. The variety in Starfox gave you more reasons to return and explore different paths. The game's branching structure meant that completing it was not a one-time experience, and this really encouraged exploration and replayability. Depending on your route through the game, you battle through different missions that had varying difficulty levels. You might have even discovered a couple hidden bonus stages if you knew where to find them. It was up to you, the player, to decide how you wanted to approach it. The final standout feature was the game's groundbreaking use of sound. The music was composed by Hajime Hirasawa, and thanks to his brilliant score, Starfox featured some of the most exhilarating and epic tunes you'd hear on the Super Nintendo, perfectly capturing the high-speed, action-packed nature of the game. The soundtrack ranged from orchestral to upbeat and energetic, to atmospheric and intense. This perfectly complemented the action and visuals. The voice effects, while limited, were memorable and helped bring the cartoonish characters to life. The overall audio presentation and experience in Starfox was a grade A, top-notch perfection of the 16-bit era. Compare that with the often gravelly voices and sound effects in the Sega Genesis that I was used to. This game was really stunning by the quality and clarity of the Super Nintendo's music. It was so symphonic and just made you want to jump into the cockpit and fight off Andross's minions. Let's take a listen. All of these incredible features and the experience they provide made Starfox a staple of Nintendo's lineup, leading to the inevitable sequels, spin-offs, and a lasting legacy across their consoles as a key franchise. Its technological advancements were a precursor to the more advanced 3D space shooters that would come to dominate the genre in later years. The game's innovative graphics influenced the design of subsequent titles, pushing developers to explore more ambitious graphics techniques. The on-rails shooter format was later replicated and some would say perfected by other breakthrough titles in their own rights, like Sylphid on the Sega CD and Panzer Dragoon on the Sega Saturn. In 1998, Star Wars Rogue Squadron on the Nintendo 64 further built upon Starfox's innovation by letting players pilot iconic Star Wars ships in fully 3D open-world space battles. So to sum it all up, Starfox was a game that didn't just advance the genre, it redefined it. It took the space shooter and launched it into the third dimension, offering gamers a fresh and immersive experience that felt unlike anything else on the market. Its innovation laid the groundwork for the future of space shooters and 3D action games, and its characters continue to be beloved icons in Nintendo's roster. But that's just what I think, so let me know in the comments below about your experience with Starfox. Is it still one of the best space shooters out there? If you played this classic back in the day, give me a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and join me for a retro gaming break anytime and anywhere you need it. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out, reminding you to keep it old school and to keep flying high. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.